Live from Jakiri in the northwest region of Cameroon, this is the news here on DBS television. We begin with this headline. The senior divisional officer for Fundi Division, Jean-Claude Tila, threatens the Social Democratic Front Party with a ban from participating in all civil march pasts of political parties in Yaoundé. This comes as a result of what happened during the last 20th May celebration in Yaoundé, with the SDF militants undressing as they marched past the official tribune with the head of state in attendance. Details of this story and much more will be yours up next in the news. Do not go away. We will be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of the news, this first day of the month of June 2018. My name is Mange Venasius Fola. We begin with this news from Yaoundé, where the senior divisional officer for Fundi Division, Jean-Claude Tila, threatens to ban the Social Democratic Front Party from taking part in 20th May celebrations in Yaoundé. The move is as a result of the SDF militants who undressed in front of the head of state, Paul Biya, as they marched past the tribune last May 20th. Jalo Buba tells us more in this report.
The main opposition party in Cameroon, the Social Democratic Front, SDF, runs the risk of not taking part in future 20th May march past at the 20th May Boulevard in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. The senior divisional officer for Fundi has expressed his bitterness with the SDF militants who undressed themselves as they marched past the tribune last 20th May in front of the head of state, President Paul Biya, surrounded by national and international dignitaries. According to the SDO, Jean-Claude Tila, he cannot tolerate such uncultured behavior. The non-nonsense seasoned civil administrator has addressed a correspondence to the party to that effect. He has cautioned the SDF to respect decent dressing code, or else they will not be allowed to take part in future events like the National Day March Past. As we wait for SDF response to the senior divisional officer, the party is at least contented to have passed their message, and that the head of state did address a letter of congratulation to them, at least for taking part in the celebration. It should be remembered that the SDF did undress themselves to call the attention of the public that they are not satisfied with the manner in which President Paul Biya is handling the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, where the SDF boycotted 20th May celebrations.
We talk some cultural news. The Douala-based guitarist and composer Seraphine Toa has presented his first musical album titled Papa God to the press. During a press conference in Douala, the artist and his manager said the album was delayed because the artist had no producer. Details with Ate Bonaventure, who sat through the press conference.
This 6-track album titled Papa God, that has been composed and sung by Seraphine Toa, is a fruit of 10 years of reflection. The artist, who is in his 50s, started his musical career in the 1980s as a guitarist and has accompanied prominent artists like Moni Bile, Njo Boule, Misengo Francois, and a host of others. When asked why it took him so long to release his first album, he responded that getting a producer who would accept to produce and promote his music was not easy, and so he had to be patient. Speaking to the press during the album presentation, his producer and manager Jean-Léon Jomo explained that he accepted the challenge to produce an album made up of old-timers like salsa and makossa at a time when Afro-pop music has conquered the musical scene, just to prove that good music will always have its place no matter the genre. Seraphine Toa says the main objective of his album is to sensitize the population about certain issues in life and the need to honor God. The album will be dedicated on Tuesday, June 5 at the French Institute in Douala, and he will be accompanied by artists like Misengo Francois and Dr. Company Mulema. After Douala, a similar exercise shall take place in Bafang and in Yaoundé.
And over in the far north region of Cameroon, the Secretary of State in the Ministry of Secondary Education, Bayola Boniface, has carried out a 4-day working visit to that part of the country. This was to evaluate the progress of construction works in some parts of that region and to assess the written phase of official exams. Seka Zubairatu completes that story in the following reports.
They all came out in their numbers, students and school administrative staffs, to welcome the Secretary of State in charge of basic education, who have carried out the 4-day workshop in the north region of Cameroon. This was to observe the conditions in which students are writing their end-of-year examinations. He paid visit to some schools, starting with Enet of Marois, then continued to Lycée Bilingue and Lycée Classique et Moderne Marois. The Secretary of State in charge of basic education did not stop there. He continued his observation visit in Mayo Chanaga Division, in Lycée Classique de Mokolo, bilingual technical schools. There he saw for himself the conditions under which students are writing their exams. The Secretary realized that due to the crisis at the north of Cameroon, some classrooms were destroyed and some students were unable to write their various examinations at their centers. He promised that those who were not able to write this year in their centers shall do in the 2018-2019 academic year, because the classrooms shall be equipped and occupied. He then further to Lycée Technique Agricole de Yagua, where the construction of classrooms are carried out, and he demanded that the work should be accelerated. He went back satisfied by saying that despite the perturbation in that part of the country, students were resistant enough until their final year exams.
We move over to the East region, where some 12 detainees of the Betua Central Prison have been baptized and some received confirmation. This was during a service organized by the Archbishop of Betua, Monsignor Joseph Atanga, who called on the newly baptized and confirmed to remain Christians in every aspect. Raul Ule Abia completes that story from Betua.
It was all joy at the Betua Central Prison as some 12 detainees decided to be baptized and receive confirmation. They decided to receive Christ as their Lord and Savior after a period of doctrine that opened their minds to accepting that God is a forgiving God. They walked up quietly to officially receive the Holy Sacrament from the Betua Metropole Archbishop Joseph Atanga, who reminded them that being in prison is not the end.
They are Christians, they are our brothers and sisters, and we are close to them. We have to care for them, and that's what we are trying to do. We have a chaplain who is coming every Sunday to celebrate Mass, and the bishop comes once a year or twice a year to pray for them and with them. And we are very happy to be here and to let them know that they are prisoners, but it is not the end of the world. There is another world after the prison. So they have to be confident. They have to remain Christians.
While it is a correctional ground, the prison superintendent agreed that it is equally a reformation center, and it is their job to help and lead them to the Lord.
The task of correcting the defaulters of law, but also reforming them, and this is part of reformation, to build their spirit in order to prepare them to integrate the society better than they came here.
Now reconciled with God, these detainees hope to keep the teachings of the Bible by practicing within the prison, while hoping for an easy social integration whenever they would be released.
And in the south region, Ajarali takes us through the village of Msilang in that part of the country to discover, she tells us, it is a cosmopolitan habitat that is still exposed to development. Her report.
Here we are today in the village of Selang in the Biondolan, in the Villa Division, South region of Cameroon. Situated some 54 kilometers from the regional capital of Ebolowa, Selang is a village of the Bulu people. They speak the Bulu language alongside French, with just 5 to 10% of English. The village can boast of educational facilities from nursery schools to the secondary and high schools. With a population of about 5,000 people, the village is cosmopolitan, harboring strangers from the region and other countries who are here to look for greener pastures, with agriculture being the main occupation of the people. They do local and mechanized farming owned by some elites of Villa, who are top-ranking officials in government. As the third-degree chief said, they are proud of some of their elite who has made life easy in the locality.
C'est là, il y a des sociétés. Nous avons la société de notre ministre BTB Sam, l'ancien ministre des Postes que vous connaissez très bien, qui a une société industrielle, une palmeraie, une cacaoculture et qui regroupe, je dis, s'il y a moins d'employés, c'est 200.
In terms of social facilities, there is water, electricity and healthcare facilities that manage the healthcare of the people. A market that operates on Saturdays welcomes traders from neighboring towns who come to buy and sell in the cities around. In Selang village, religion is a matter of choice, as there is freedom of worship with different churches present. However, all is not green in the village, as His Majesty Menge Henry Martin says the major problem is the high crime wave, as he called on government to plant a security post to restore law and order within the youth who are engaged in high drug consumption.
Je suis en train de prendre contact avec les autorités administratives pour que en Selang, qu'on nous dote un service de gendarmerie.
But to crown it all, Selang village is a place of peace and unity, as the inhabitants find their way out to carry their daily activities in peace and tranquility.
We are still in the month of Ramadan, and our reporter Nde Vanessa wants us to look at how Muslim faithfuls, mostly restaurant owners, go through the fasting period when they have food to cook and clients to serve. Thus, she got answers after visiting some restaurants here in town. Her report.
Ramadan, a time of fasting and prayers where a Muslim faithful abstains from food, water and any other substance to the pleasure of the tongue. This holiest month, however, comes with its own challenges. Focused on Muslims who are meat vendors and restaurant owners, most of them during this Ramadan period have a common challenge: cooking without having a taste of what it is. Many say they are used to and thus have less difficulties in spicing the meat.
I am used to this work and I know the amount of salt I put. If it is good, it is good. Whether I taste it or not, it is good. This is my everyday work, so I know what I put in it. You cannot taste it for nothing, because when you do so, you have spoiled the fasting. Before, we used to cook without tasting. We look at the quantity before putting the amount of salt and ingredients. In case there is less salt, there is extra aroma on the table for individuals to add if they wish to.
Contrary to being used to the amount of ingredients they put, one could taste the food without swallowing the sauce. In case one breaks the rule to fast, he or she is expected to fast after the feast for 60 days or feed 60 poor people. It is with caution that these Muslim faithfuls, owners of restaurants, go through their daily job. As the Muslim dicton says, it is haram.
And in another feature story tonight, Philip Soto tells us about the inhabitants of Ndokhem in Douala 3 municipality who, as of now, have no way of escaping a ravine that seems to have become a death trap for them. His report.
Ndokhem 2 in Douala 3 council area, one of those neighborhoods in Douala
with a population whose daily lives turned around subsistence, most of the inhabitants here, or landlords, would have readily preferred to live or construct elsewhere if there was that financial possibility. But because here is the best alternative for now, they are constrained to live with the inconveniences that characterizes the environment. Inconveniences linked to this ravine, a situation that makes especially those living close to it to live in perpetual fear, hoping that the city council or any other administrative authority will one day come to their aid. Those who could no longer contain their fear, like the former inhabitants of this building that was eventually supposed to be a story building, have simply abandoned. But for this retired policeman, he is watching the situation closely, hoping that the worst will not happen soon. He says in 2001, when they settled there, it was plain land until rainwater started digging gradually, until they now find themselves trapped in the situation that presents itself today. A real death trap, to go by what this boy says, that the remains of an old woman who used to live in this neighborhood was retrieved from the ravine some weeks back in an advanced state of decomposition. But in spite of the danger that is visible there, it is home to many, and there is nowhere better than home.
We pray the worst do not come. We now talk news out of the country, and this time we go over to Somalia. A number of migrants from Somalia who have been intercepted as they tried to cross over to Europe and were kept in Libya have been sent back home. Somalian authorities expressed satisfaction that the boys were finally rescued and they are going back to begin a new life in Somalia. We have details with our VOA correspondent.
About 150 Somali migrants have returned home after spending several months in detention centers in Libya. Their return Wednesday is part of a repatriation program organized by the United Nations. The returnees had been rounded up by Libyan authorities as they tried to cross the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. In 2016, the European Union and the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, launched a €174 million fund to help repatriate the migrants. The IOM has tracked over 600,000 migrants in Libya, where they had been exposed to smuggling, trafficking, kidnapping, abuse, detention, and torture.
UNHCR are providing cash-based transfers immediately and for the next 6 months, as well as other supports. And IOM is looking towards more needs-based reintegration support over the long term, including vocational training, health, business support, psychosocial, whatever they need. We're trying to help them towards a sustainable integration.
We are very happy that we could help these boys, because these boys go through a very difficult time there in Libya. They are being, the smugglers request a lot of money, they get kidnapped, they get beaten, they are exposed to a lot of harassment and abuses, nothing to drink, nothing to eat. So it is really a terrible situation. It's not only for the Somalis, but for all Africans who are there. And I wish that, this agony, this drama to end as soon as possible.
In Nigeria, thousands of students continue to attend the University of Maiduguri in northeastern Nigeria, despite at least a dozen attacks by the Boko Haram insurgency since the start of 2017. Details with VOA correspondent in Maiduguri.
At the University of Maiduguri's radio station, DJs not only have to play music, they also try to keep students calm.
We make it a priority to do that, to keep them positive. Of course, to try and stay relaxed, focus on their studies.
That's because the university of 20,000 students is in the city where the terrorist group Boko Haram was formed and where it continues to launch deadly attacks. Throughout Boko Haram's 9-year war against the Nigerian government, the university was never targeted until January 2017. Tassiu Hassan remembers that very first attack.
Campus actually, on that very day, even me too, I have examination, but the university management had to cancel all the examination. I found myself in a very, very terrible situation, in such a way that I have even started thinking of going back home.
But he stayed, like many of his classmates. Since then, the university has been hit at least 12 times, university officials told VOA. Suicide bombers have detonated explosives at the school on separate incidents. About a dozen members of the geology department were kidnapped in June. The university is the most prestigious and largest public educational institution in northeastern Nigeria. The students are defying Boko Haram's message, which denounces Western education as sinful. Today, students are taking their final exams. The university has never closed for a single day throughout Boko Haram's insurgency.
To show how resilient we are, to show how much sacrifice we are making, and that is the true reflection of the Maiduguri spirit. We are here because we have a responsibility to keep the system going. Somebody has to be around to do the job, no matter how bad the situation is.
Last year, authorities dug a 27-kilometer-long trench around the university's eastern perimeter, which faces Cameroon, where many Boko Haram insurgents operate. The trench is designed to slow down Boko Haram fighters who often invade cities on motorcycle. Every day, sniffer dogs carry out inspections. They're looking out for bomb chemicals and weapons. No other public Nigerian university in the region has this level of security. It's why Esther Clement continues to go to school here.
Even though there's insurgency, we are secured. As you can see, even before you come to the gate of the gate one, there are securities here and there. At the gate of the hostel, there are securities. Even when there is bomb blast, they call us to calm us down. They secure the whole hostels. We don't go out.
Despite the obvious risk, the student population is growing, and current students say the school is actually getting stronger in the fight against Boko Haram. Chika Odua for VOA News, Maiduguri, Nigeria.
It is with that news from Nigeria that we come to the end of this edition of the news here on DBS television. The next newscast will be coming up in the French language with Luc Serge Didier Nang. As for me, we will be together again by Monday. Thank God it is Friday. Have a blessed weekend. Good night.